Hey everyone, and welcome to today's live stream. So nice to have so many here already. If you think anyone should be here and that they aren't here yet, send them the link. Just copy the link above and send it and copy it to your friends. Anyone you think could be interested in this topic. Today we're talking about your biggest MBTI type doubt. What you doubt, or what have you in the past doubted the most in yourself regarding your own personality and behavior and who you are. I'm really gonna make this all about you. So just tell me about your personality type and tell me what you sometimes wonder, questioning yourself, and tell me other types you might have considered, and tell me things you're uncertain about ENTPs or INTJs such as yourself, and tell me okay, how come most ENTPs I meet are like that when I'm more like this? Tell me all those things, and let's talk about that together so we can just brainstorm and discuss and learn about the cognitive functions, about ourselves, and about our types. So, okay, I'm gonna start off by myself just to get this rolling. I'm an INFJ. I type as INFJ. In the past, when I first took my MBTI test, I thought maybe INFP. I've always thought I was an introverted feeling type and an introverted intuitive type, related the most to those two cognitive functions in myself. I have never really associated or thought I was a thinking type. I doubted the most my own judging function. I was the least sure if I was a judging type. I was the most sure I was an intuitive type, a feeling type, and an introvert. I sometimes thought maybe ENFJ because I was outgoing. But then I realized in the Myers-Briggs system, there's a difference between being outgoing and being extroverted. You meet that when you read on introversion, you meet a lot of introverts that say they are outgoing. You meet a lot of introverts that are public speakers. You meet a lot of introverts that hold conventions and that write books, that go out on conferences and do signings. And you meet a lot of introverts that are forced to or need to be outgoing for their line of work or career. Of course, this is met with a set of challenges, but being outgoing is different from being extroverted. Being outgoing is wanting to share something with the world. Being extroverted means being interested in the outer world. So it's a difference between wanting to share something and then wanting to study it and being like, what is this that I just shared? And what is this, what we're talking about here? What is this? So it's also just being interested in objects versus being interested in ideas or thoughts. And that made it very clear for me that I was an introvert because I was always more about thoughts and ideas and about my own inner world than I was about the outer world. I thought that was more interesting. It was my personal interest. So, okay. A psychologist tried to tell me I had Asperger's. I think I'm just an INTJ. And he hadn't even heard of that. And it sucks to have my characteristics pathologized. And yeah, that's something that keeps on happening. I keep seeing people put a diagnosis on MBTI type. A lot of people assume, okay, if you're an ENFP or an ENTP, then you might have ADHD. If you're an INFP or an INTP, maybe ADD. If you're an INTJ or an INTP, maybe autism. If you are an ENTP, maybe sociopath. Lots of people do this. It's not the same. A diagnosis, a psychological problem like a neuropsychiatric dysfunction is different from an MBTI type. An MBTI type is just an interest. So you can have a diagnosis. You can be diagnosed as having ADHD, and you can be an ISFJ personality type. It's possible. The thing is just what happens when you have a diagnosis or when you have a struggle or a psychological disorder uh, is you have a struggle, a big struggle that is beyond what is normal, beyond what is healthy in any person, in any human being. So what you'll find is if you have a diagnosis, or to get a diagnosis to begin with, to get diagnosed with autism, usually you have to display strong symptoms. You have to display strong difficulties. It's not enough to be depressed to diagnose as INFP. Um, being depressed doesn't make you an INFP. Being an INFP doesn't make you depressed. There's a difference between melancholy and depression. That's something a lot of people miss. What happens with, for example, ADHD is there's like a chronic inability to organize. It's beyond just being an ENFP or an ENTP. It's having a chronic inability to organize. It's usually the case that you can use your inferior functions. You can use them, you can develop them, you can put them to practice, and there's no problem. But if you have a chronic inability to do so, if it's impossible almost for you to get any kind of order in your life, if it's impossible for you to pay your bills on time, if you keep coming late to every day, if you keep missing deadlines, if you keep to the point where it becomes unhealthy and almost impossible to manage life, that's when you are worthy of a diagnosis as ADHD. And that's when you should also look into help from partners, friends, or a psychologist, or somebody that can help you manage your life in order. So that's the difference. There's a difference between the diagnosis and the MBTI type. Okay, so my biggest insecurities regarding my own type was, when I was younger, when I was 15-ish, before I knew I was an INFJ, I had a lot of uncertainties about my own empathy. I was developing my empathy. I was priding myself on being empathetic. I wanted to early on counsel my friends. I listened a lot to my friends' feelings. I heard a lot about their issues. I spent a lot of time thinking of solutions. I cared deeply about the world and its problems. I engaged myself early in politics. I tried to come up with ways to help people and to understand different issues in the world, poverty, global warming, what was happening. I had all that. But at the same time, I had a doubt towards my own empathy and a fear of my own empathy and the insecurity about my own empathy. First, I glamorified intelligence and critical thinking over empathy, or what I saw as empathy. So I rejected my own empathy, and I thought it was pointless. What's the point of being able to feel another person's feeling? What help does it make? Isn't the only thing I can do think critically about how to solve their problems? That empathy I have is useless. It serves no purpose. People don't get help just because I listen to them. People don't feel better just because I'm there. I have to actually think of a solution to their problems. I actually have to examine their issues analytically. I actually have to, I felt like I needed some kind of science to back up what I did, and that I needed answers to responsibly express empathy towards other people. And I felt empathy was impossible or worthless without critical thinking. Can you talk about how extroverted thinking can be confused with extroverted feeling and what the differences are? Well, I can brush over that actually. Uh, in relation to myself, I've never thought really that I was an INTJ, but Sweden is a very TJ heavy culture, and a lot of people have thinking and judging in Sweden. And you see that because people value clearly defined goals. TJs, they say, I want to reach this number of people in that amount of time using this tool and that tool and that tool. INFJs and FJs, we say, I want to reach people. I want to maybe try talking to people and see what happens. I want to maybe start up a project, and perhaps it will lead to some kind of progress towards my goal. I want to perhaps just try to write something down, and perhaps it will be good, and perhaps I can use it to make this better. So it's personally defined goals. I think if I do this, it will help me towards my goal. I feel inclined to, I want to go out and talk to those people and engage in that movement, and perhaps it will help make the world a better place. you don't know if it's actually going to work. You don't know how it's going to work. You don't know using what steps if you're going to get there. So this is something I felt very insecure about, and still to some extent feel very insecure about. People say I'm a lousy planner, yet I execute a lot. I start up a lot of projects. I do a lot. I am productive to some extent, you know. And that's the shit under the stick that feeling judging types have to carry, that we believe talking can solve a problem. We believe that just working together will make things better, even if you don't know exactly how or exactly why. We believe it's going to work. It's like you're working with magic or with belief or hope rather than and with emotions rather than with laws or logic or rules. So there's less trust in it, and I felt a lot of time that I needed more trust in it, and that I needed to define things more clearly. And I felt very secure about that when I was challenged by other INTJs. When I brought an idea to them and they said, okay, but how? So Ferry says, if I'm an INFP and also of a choleric temperament, does that mean I'm naturally more prone to using my TE? Okay, so the choleric type is more aggressive, they're more strong, they value strength, they value being pushing yourself, working hard at something, and giving it your best effort and putting all your energy and all your resources into something. So they're pushy, they're strong-minded, they have high willpower, and they're able to set their emotions aside to get what they need to be done. So that sounds not very INFP at all, of course. But truth is, a lot of INFPs I met wear iron suits. They wear metal armor. INFPs are stereotyped as crybabies, but most INFPs that I met are people that are able to be quite tough and quite strong in front of other people. Of course, when they're on their own, that's rarely the case. They're actually rarely they're not as strong as they appear. So what I'm getting at is INFPs and FPs often have an armor to the world. They show only layers of themselves. They don't show everything. They don't show everything they're feeling or everything they're thinking about. A lot of it is hidden. And that's just another part of the INFP. They hide their emotions. And people assume because you hide your emotions that you're choleric or because that you're strong or that you're cold or logical or rational. But there's a difference between holding your emotions away from the world internally and being a thinking type. Just because it's not visible in passion or softness or sweetness or being careful and so on doesn't mean that it's not there. So there can be a strong emotion, and what you're going to look for when you look for INFPs is strong intentions, like a strong idea of what they want to do and what they care about and what their goals are in a situation, what they feel their purpose is about something, how they're going to get there. So INFPs do things, and they have a lot of emotion behind what they do, and that's usually what allows them to stand up to the group and to say what nobody else dares to say, and it gets them to put themselves forward and to question things that other people don't dare to question, because an INFP feels they need to inside. They feel they need to do this. I need to say this. It's important I say this. Nobody's saying this, but this is very important. That's what INFPs feel. Nobody has thought about this. Nobody has noticed this, but this has to be said. This has to be done. And then there's an assumption INFPs make, and it's not really true. I have to be strong to deliver this message. I have to put on a tough front to deliver this message. So INFPs don't need their metal suit or their metal armor. And they are confused as cold, and they doubt themselves and their own softness and their own intentions because of this armor. And eventually you recognize that you can express this message without having to be hard or harsh or tough on other people. It's not necessary, and that's part of growth. So 1 minute. Still getting over my cold, but I couldn't be away from there any longer. I really couldn't. So guess what? We now have 9,986 subscribers. It's possible we can hit 10,000 tonight. It's possible we'll hit 10,000 people tonight. Incredible. As a child, I wondered if I was an introvert or extrovert, but it was pretty clear once I got older. It takes a while for your preferences to become clear to you, you know. The only time you notice is like when you're pushed, or when you're actually having fun, or when you go to somewhere and it's great. You only notice it in the intense situations where you are mindful and when you're awake. 10,000 people, yeah, that's a small city, small medium town. It's a football stadium. How can an INTP overcome laziness? I actually made a video about INTP laziness. God damn it. Yeah, it's here. I'll share the link in the chat. Check it out after the stream, not right now. Please check it out after the stream. I'll sum it up. INTP laziness. INTPs are not lazy. Their interests are just more focused on theory rather than implementation. INTPs are just more interested in ideas rather than what we're gonna do right now. And they're not disciplined. And they're not about doing things in a specific time, at a specific situation, at a specific like in a specific manner. So they're not disciplined. They're not extroverted. They're focus, and what they put all of their energy into is theorizing, it's analyzing, it is criticizing, it is brainstorming, it is twisting, turning, seeing from different angles, it's considering from multiple situations how it can be done. If you find your INTP is lazy, you're putting them in the wrong situation and in the wrong environment. You're asking them to do the wrong things. You're trying to get them to waste their energy to do something that's not necessary. What you want to do is you want to put them in a situation where you can use their theories and where you can put their ideas to practice, and where you can have them explore your new projects, how they're going to happen, what the best route is, the best strategy. You're going to want them to explain all of it. So yeah, you just need to learn to use their energy better. Peter asks, how do INFJs use extroverted intuition? Around extroverted intuitives. The only chance you get to see an INFJ use extroverted intuition is really around other extroverted intuitives. If you're doing it, then we can join in. I suck at connecting patterns. I suck at connecting the dots and making, that leads to that, and that event is connected to that event. Terrible at any. So how do I use it besides that? Well, I use it as a fuel. to my intuitive process. Whenever I hear about a pattern, I go, so why pattern? I philosophize on patterns. Make an existential framework of it. I take it and I fit it with other things, and I go, okay, how is that? Are there other patterns like that? Have you heard of anything else like this? I find an explanation for it. This pattern must have occurred because of this and that metaphysical force. So that's what I do with it. Biggest MBTI type doubts. Anyone? Do you have any doubts about your own personality type? Or did you used to have any doubts? I used to doubt my own focus. As an NGA, you're supposed to have like this immense vision and focus, right? Not necessarily from the beginning. And your visions can be hard to explain. And it can feel like it's hard to find a pathway there. You know, when I was a kid, I said, okay, when I'm old, I want to have developed a special theory that will help the world understand each other's better and that will help people live more peacefully together. That's my goal when I was 12. I wrote it down. I still have the book left where it's down. So I've been working towards that all the time. But growing up, I sometimes felt scattered. I felt like I was going off the topic, that I was losing my ground, that I was losing my path, that I was forgetting about where I was meant to go. In politics, I felt that very strongly, that in politics, I had no theory. I only had my passion, and I only had my desire to help. And I'd lost my theory, and I'd lost my intellectual vision. I was adjusting too much to the situation. I was thinking too short term. I missed a lot. So during those times, I thought, am I really an NJ? What if I'm too scattered to see my goals through? And there was also a tendency to rush my own goals. I haven't done my goals yet, so I'm a failure as an intuitive judger. If I can't finish my goals quickly, I'm not a good NJ. I have to work faster and harder, and I have to, yeah. And then there's also failures of prediction, like being wrong about something. That hits me pretty badly. You know, I get pretty anxious when I'm wrong about something. So I speculate a lot. And I've made a lot of predictions in the past about all kinds of things in life. Who's going to win the football games? Who's going to win the political struggles? What seats party going to poll at? I want to be good at speculation. And I want to be able to see things and how they're going to go. But then I've been wrong many times. I've been overly optimistic. I've been expecting things to happen faster than they were. So it took me a while to develop that ability. And I felt sometimes insecure about it. Still, it's not about if you're good at a function or not. It's about if you love it, if you enjoy it, if you keep throwing yourself at it. No matter if you're right or wrong, no matter if your speculations turn out to be false every time, if you still love to do it, if you still want to keep going, despite it all not working out, that's a big indicator that you are an NJ. So put that aside for a second. Put your failures to be empathetic aside as an IF. Put your failures to be honest and to tell the truth sometimes aside as an INFP or ENFP. Put your feelings of inferiority or failure as an INTP or ENTP aside. Put your feelings of failure of discipline and control and self-control as an ISTJ aside as an ISTJ. Put your failure to go for it and to jump and to take the leap as an ESFP aside. It's not about that. It's about what you actually do. Do you actually like to do it? Do you actually enjoy it? Is that something that's important to you? That's your key sign that you are the right personality type. My INFP daughter and INTJ husband seem to move so slowly. Yeah, INTJs are some of the most slow personality types of them all. Ask them to do something, they can take a year before they get started, but once they do, they don't quit. They don't really give up. And they take their time to think things through. How am I going to do it? Is it going to work? What am I going to do? Yeah. I wish the ENFP manic pixie stream girl stereotype would go away, but what can you do? What can you do? Yeah, Peter. Misconception that the personality type, that extroverts have to be happy all the time, that introverts have to be sad all the time, that intuitives have to be excited and curious, that thinkers have to be cold and rational all the time. You know that you have these associations about how people are meant to feel or how they're meant to think. But you're gonna have bad days and you're gonna have good days, and your type true and true. We should be talking about the sad ENFP and the happy ENFP and the anxious ENFP, and just talk about how we deal with those things. Then it gets interesting. There was a big survey on Facebook Asperger's page, and most of them were introverted intuitives. Yeah, I think there might be something to that. HSP and autism is also confused a lot. Autists often score as HSP. HSPs do not always score as autistic. So we have the ENTP sociopath stereotype. That one's quite interesting. I've heard a lot of people talk about it on YouTube as well. So ENTPs, they have FJ inferior, and they have introverted feeling inferior. They act tough, they act cool, they try to play the game, they try to play the strategy, they try to be analytical about something, they try to analyze it, think critically about it, think pragmatically about something. What can I do for other people? How can I help them? What's the solution to this problem? What can I do about it? Because there's not necessarily any, oh, I'm sorry to hear that. And, oh, because ENTPs don't say, oh, is there anything I can do for you? We assume they don't care. What people fail to notice is that's not how you should talk to an ENTP. ENTPs can't deal with that. They can't deal with like, oh, informal expectations like, of I said I'm sick, so you should have come by me and you should have made me some warm tea or soup. You can't expect ENTPs to think like that. You have to expect and explain to them what you need. Tell them I'm sick, so somebody's gonna need to make me a soup, and I'm so tired and I can't get out of bed. Could you do it? And then ENTPs are actually not. Actually, they're actually quite likely to say, yeah, of course. But if you say, I'm a little sick today, and you say, oh, I wish somebody could make me soup, and they don't do anything, you can't get upset with them. You can't say, oh, you're so unempathetic, you should be caring about me, you should listen to me, you should have known that I wanted it. It's not going to work on ENTPs. Come on. Tell them, okay, this is what I need. I'm sad. This is what I need to be happy. This is, or yeah, I'm struggling with something. Then ask them to solve your problem. You can, ENTPs are excellent when you need to solve a problem. You're stuck somewhere. You can't get past something. Oh, how am I gonna solve this issue? I've had this bad experience with my partner. Ask an ENTP, and they're gonna have the answer. They're gonna love to come up with solutions for you. Maybe you can try talking to them. Maybe you can check this out. Maybe you can. I read this article. That works perfectly for ENTPs. ENTPs show their emotions and their care through problem solving. They show their love through uh, pragmatic problem solving, through thinking and, okay, what can I do in this situation to make it better for you? Okay. Yeah. Yeah, it's difficult for NTs when people just drop hints. Just tell people what you need, you know. So there's a fear of doing that. But that's really quite strange. 1 second. What makes you the most certain that you are the type you think you are? What I'm the most certain of myself is that I'm an introverted intuitive. Introverted intuition is the function in myself that I recognize the most throughout my entire life. All those years I was just writing or thinking, all those times I spent just building up like this scenario or idea in my head, all those times that I was just getting into something, all those questions I've had my entire life that I've just kept coming, you know, they've always made me sure of my personality type. When Eox, the ENTP, says, I'm a crazy scientist who can't wait to develop the most world changing invention of all time. Yeah, to me, ENTPs are, when actualized, they are the great inventors. Peter is the most sure as an ENFP because of his weakness for introverted thinking. So, yeah, a lot of feeling perceiving types, they have issues with introverted thinking or thinking and perceiving. So, what that means is, okay, like, how do I explain this? Thinking, perceiving types, they can play devil's advocate. They can go, what if you had to screw this lever to kill 5 people to save 100 people? What if you had to like push these buttons? You know, they can play around with the possibility. They can think about it and analyze it logically. Okay. Feeling, perceiving types, they tend to get these attachments like, but you should not kill that person because that person is really important. You know, they can get like that kind of attachment where they can feel like, but I know Anna. She's a great person. I can't let her die. Like even if I have to let other 100 people live, and then there's that issue like that. You get attached to uh, things emotionally, and you start feeling like they are more important than like a utilitarian or logical principle. Fairy of something, an INFP says, I am the depressed flower girl who is crying all the time, but with a lot of flamethrowers. Do thinkers tend to present themselves as feelers and feelers like thinkers in public? Okay, something I noticed INTJs do is, okay, INTJs, they can come up to you and they can be like, They're trying to criticize you, or they're trying to push you to do something, or they're trying to get you to do something. And they try so hard to be nice. They try so hard to sound nice while they do. So something can happen is when somebody is trying to be nice towards you and they smile and they go out of their way, well, you can see in their eyes that they are upset or they're annoyed by something. That gets very difficult. That's something typical. Like they come up and they're like, could you do that the next time? And you don't know how to interpret their reactions, because you see that in their eyes that they're upset, but their smile says they're okay and they're not that offended at all, or that you didn't do something bad at all. So that can be very difficult with INTJs. Yeah, you're trying to be nice. You're trying to be polite and wrap it in, or not sound so harsh when you say it, because there can be an insecurity there, like as an introverted thinker, that you're giving critical feedback and other people are getting all sensitive about it. What should you do instead? Oh, I don't even know if you need to do something instead. It's just a tricky thing. I don't even know if you have to just deliver it harshly. I think just explain to people how you work. Tell people, and people don't realize this, that there are spectrums to how different people show emotion. So I was in an environment once where there were a lot of thinkers and I was the only feeler. And so we had to deal with different people all the time. And there was a group of people that the thinkers couldn't deal with, and it was the feelers. And the feelers, they asked you to go around the system. They asked you to make compromises. They asked you to do impossible things. And they got emotional, and they brought up their sister and their struggle and their bad day. And they brought up what you said and what it's written and how it meant, or how it felt, or how they interpreted it personally, how they read it. And they ask you to change, or like based on that. So that's very difficult for thinkers. And they're like, but you should not do that. That's illogical. You should not write that down. You should not. You should get that it's not like that. You should have checked the page first. You should have this and that. So what they forget is, okay, feelers want emotional validation. They have no idea how to give that or to deal with that. But it's the same way for feelers, of course. Feelers don't know how to deal with thinking. They don't realize that there's a system for things. They don't realize that there are rules for things. They don't necessarily notice that if they keep making the same mistake every day, there's going to be problems or consequences. They don't necessarily think about those things. Feelers can struggle with being horribly lacking in self-awareness about a lot of logical matters of society, like what happens if you don't pay your bill on time? What happens if you don't set a goal or a plan? What happens if you don't communicate something with another person or make a decision with somebody? What happens if you don't follow through? Feelers struggle to notice these things, and they should rightfully so be criticized for this. So what you're gonna have to do as an INTJ when you're talking to feelers is say to them, I might sound harsh sometimes, but I'm really not. I might sound critical sometimes, but that's not my intention. That's just how I sound. It's like that notion of resting bitch face. You've heard about the resting bitch face. Some people have that. They look upset and they look angry and they look like they hate you, but they don't. You're just gonna have to keep telling people that. Yeah, like the appearances might deceive you. I'm actually quite sweet, but it's just that I have a rough style sometimes when I talk to people, or that my voice is a little more strong. And then it's usually okay. Like somebody gets upset when you criticize them, like, yeah, Just keep reminding them of the differences in how you see things. Like some people are always happy and they're always like smiling and they're giving so much energy, but on the inside they can actually they might not actually be that happy. They might not actually be that energetic. Some people exaggerate their emotions and some people downplay them. Some people seem more pushy but are actually quite relaxed on the inside. So you don't know. You're gonna have to look and listen to that person's context. Mina asks, "Hi Eric, my first time here. Do you have any tips for a person who is constantly doubtful of her type? How much do difficult life experiences and trauma affect the typing of oneself?" Saki, you also have a bit of resting bitch face, or like you have a very like tough expression, so it's hard to read. And because your emotions are on the inside, not on the outside, it's hard to notice them. So that's something people are gonna get when they talk with you and when they discuss with you later on. They're gonna feel, wow, that guy actually is quite sweet. That guy is actually quite. Oh, that's just gonna be something you're gonna get. Not all introverted feelers have resting bitch face though. It's maybe a lot of them can, but not all of them do. Some of them look more harmonious, or like some INFPs look like this. Some INFPs look like this. So it depends. Melancholy only has those two states. Either melancholic types are really harmonious and at peace, or they are like they just woke up. So I was gonna answer Mina's question. Difficult life experiences and trauma. Trauma can literally rewrite your head if it's very extreme. Can literally rewrite your head. So a very traumatic experience can make you go from being very outgoing to being very withdrawn. It can make you go from being a very ethical and conscientious person to being a very careless and apathetic at times person. It can make you go from being very curious to being very careful and very afraid. Like it can make you go from being very proactive and forward oriented to being quite reactive and quite focused on others. But it doesn't change your type. I have not seen that trauma has changed a person's type. It changes your behavior, but it doesn't change your type. So the difference is an ENFP can be withdrawn, but they're still an extrovert. So they're still going to be around a lot of people and they're still going to listen a lot to others and they're still going to be quite involved in other people's lives and they're still going to want to go out more, but they're going to be more careful with what they say and they're going to be a little more careful about what they open up and share with others. They're going to be more interested in learning about things and analyzing things and thinking critically about things, and they're going to have more of a filter. That doesn't make you an INFP, but it just means you become a little more reserved. You can change that if you like. It takes time and effort. Behavior can be changed, but your type is just what you like to do. An extrovert likes to be out. An introvert likes to be inside. An intuitive likes to be somewhere more abstract. A sensor likes to be somewhere more practical, concrete. A feeler likes to be somewhere more personalized. A thinker likes to be somewhere more logical or rational. A judger likes to be somewhere more organized, and a perceiver likes to be somewhere where things are changing a lot. It's just what you like to do, what you dislike to do. Yeah, if the stereotype is to be an ENFP, you have to be very outgoing. Then a lot of ENFPs are gonna struggle because not a lot of you are gonna be outgoing. And if an introvert has to be reserved, then we're gonna struggle. But we don't have to be. You know, we have to start separating behavior and type. Whenever a person starts saying, "Oh, you can't be an extrovert, you're too reserved," or "You can't be an introvert, you're too outgoing," then you put your fingers on their mouth and you say, "No, that's not how it works. Listen up. This is what Carl Jung said about introversion and extroversion. Introverts are oriented by ideas and thoughts. Extroverts are primarily interested in objects and events and experiences." There we go. Then there's subtypes. I'm an introverted intuitive subtype. You meet INFJs that are feeling judging subtypes. And they're going to be quite different from me. You know, the feeling judging INFJs, they're quite smooth, charismatic, communicative. They're quite focused on guiding people. They're perhaps psychologists, perhaps they're politicians. They're a lot more proactive and goal-oriented. That's the feeling judging subtype. The introverted intuitive subtype, like myself, we're a lot more thoughtful. We're a lot more existentially inclined. We're a lot more focused on our own inner world. We're dreamers. The feeling judging subtypes, they talk a lot about being social chameleons. They say they constantly take on other people's energies, and they constantly keep changing and becoming and stepping into other people's shoes. They have an out of control empathy. So their experiences can be quite different. It's just a subtype. Still INFJ, still make same values, same core. So some INFJs, they lean more on thinking and extroverted thinking, and some on introverted intuition. Yeah, they come across differently. You have the TJ INTJs, and they're often architects, or they are like designers, or they are like planners, or they work for a company. They're a boss of something or a manager. Then you have the introverted intuitive INTJs, and they're often academics, and they're often into philosophy, and they're often more scientifically inclined. They like to study and test things and prove things, see how it works. Still INTJs, you know, if you know what an INTJ is like, you'll always know that. You might have doubts about your personality type, but you're rarely going to doubt what's fundamental about you. So, like, for example, your subtype. If you're an INTJ, an introvert intuitive INTJ, you're not really going to doubt that. Perhaps you're going to doubt thinking and judging. Yeah. Yeah, Bethany. The TJ type is a little more like an ENTJ or an ESTJ because they're much more about action. They get more annoyed with themselves for being slow. The TJ type, they go like, "Oh, I have to be faster, and what the hell? Why am I stuck on this problem or this existential issue? I have to get going, and I have to put something out there to people, and I have to show people what I've been working on." So the TJ type rushes their introvert intuition a lot more, and they get more annoyed with it. Type Denmark, and Sweden as countries. Sweden is an INTJ. Denmark is, I have no idea. I have no idea what Denmark is. What do you think Denmark is? I have no idea what Finland is. So much Finnish in the chat. What the hell? Yeah, I thought ENFJ could be it. Yeah, Denmark is a little more extroverted than Sweden. So I feel like the biggest doubt people have regarding their own type is about intelligence. Like, oh, I'm too smart to be an INFP. Ah, I'm too smart to be a sensor. I'm too smart to be an extrovert. I'm too smart to be a perceiver. I feel like people keep throwing that out. Like, I feel like people keep saying that, which is funny because people are actually complimenting themselves. I'm smart. I'm smart. I'm so smart. But also, like, people, the point that MBTI brought forward regarding intelligence is that any type can be intelligent. So I was discussing this with my girlfriend later on yesterday, and I said the two smartest sensors in my view are the ESFPs and the ESFJs. Only to realize that well, that was very biased. I said ESFJ because the ESFJs that I met, they seem very mature, very people aware. They know how people work. They can like they are alert. They're concentrated. They're focused. Usually, they know what's happening around them. They're pretty up to date with things. They know what's in. They know what's hip. They know what's going on. They have a high awareness. So that's why I can say the extroverted sensors tend to come out ahead in my book as the smartest. Where I tend to feel like ISFPs in my book are the most stupid. And I'm sorry to say that because I know it's not true. I know, objectively speaking, that ISFPs have a lot of intelligence and that they manifest it differently. The two most stupid intuitives in my book, it's the ENTJ and the ENFJ. But I know that's not true either because sometimes I meet ENFJs, and ENs, they have a sharpness to them. I don't know if you've noticed this with extrovert intuitives, but they are extremely sharp. When you're talking with an extrovert intuitive, and they're looking at you like this. They're looking at you exactly like this. And it's like they're reading what you're saying. They're surfing on the patterns. They're making the connections. They're going, oh, you just said that, but then before you said that, they're analyzing and they're checking for your lies. They are going like, what does that mean? Okay, oh, I see where that's leading. I know exactly what he's gonna say now. That's extrovert intuitives. So actually, they're actually quite sharp. But subjectively, I tend to say, oh, they're not as smart because they can say a lot of stupid things. And they sometimes lack a lot of awareness about the issues of their own ideas. They start up a grand project, but they have no idea how they're going to get it done. They overlook obvious problems and obstacles. They just say, let's do this. Even if everybody should see this is not going to work. They say, oh, let's get this grand project done. And they have Yeah. So I go like, that's so stupid. Come on. How can that be? How can you do that? So yeah, I know a lot of people would say the STJs are the smartest sensors, but I'm going to say ESFP. ESFPs, they are usually brilliant in their awareness of things around them, in their like ability to stay up to date with what's going on, to stay centered and to keep it cool. They are able to listen very intelligently, like they know exactly what you're doing, they know exactly what you're up to, they know exactly what you're trying to do or where you're coming from. They listen very well. They have extremely sharp listening, and they have like a natural wisdom to things, like you should not do that, you should not say that, that's stupid, why would you do that? They know intuitively that, okay, feeling wise, that you should not say or do something, or that there are things that are bad. They don't need to explain it or have a logical explanation for it. They just know it's bad, and often they're right. So okay, this was my first stream in, oh, I don't know how long has it been? And I had an absolute blast with all of you. We are now 9,986 subscribers, so maybe it hasn't updated yet, or maybe we still need 14 more people. Maybe I'll wake up tomorrow to 10,000. Maybe it will happen on Monday. I have no idea what's gonna happen, well, or when it's gonna happen, but it's soon. That's a milestone to me. So I want to invite everyone who came in here to join up for the after talk. We're gonna do an after talk on Discord. I have the link right here. And set it to never expire. We're going to join up on voice, but you can also write in text if you prefer. You don't have to say anything. You can just be there and listen in like a spy. Or you can talk as much as you like. It's at the very top of the channels. There's a channel called voice chat. That's the text, or that's where you write. Then there's a volume icon with the text general. So we all join up in general. You can also use music or gaming if you like to spread off. And that's going to be perfect. Thanks everyone for joining up. And I hope to see you all on Discord.